So basically we are going to discuss the mandibular nerve. It passes through the foramen ovale. Now the main trunk of the mandibular nerve, as it emerges through the foramen ovale, it gives out one branch and then it divides into anterior division and posterior division. Now that one branch which is given off from the trunk is very important. This branch is known as the nerve to medial pterygoid because it supplies the medial pterygoid muscle, which is the only muscle of mastication which is supplied by the trunk. The rest of the muscles of mastication are supplied by the anterior division. This is a very important question, that which muscle of mastication is supplied by the trunk of the mandibular nerve, and it is the medial pterygoid. And after giving branches to the medial pterygoid, this nerve to medial pterygoid also gives branches to two other muscles, the tensor veli palatini and the tensor tympani muscle. Okay. Now, after giving out this branch, this nerve divides into anterior and posterior division, and the anterior division gives branches to all the muscles of mastication. Then this anterior division also gives one other branch, which is an exclusively sensory branch, which is known as the buccal nerve. As the name implies, one can think, okay, this is the buccal nerve and this also pierces the buccinator muscle, so this should supply the buccinator muscle, but no. This is the buccal nerve and this is the only sensory branch which is coming from the anterior division, and even though it passes through the buccinator muscle, it supplies the buccal, it only supplies the mucosa of the buccal mucosa. Okay, it is not supplying the buccinator muscle. The buccinator muscle is supplied by the buccal branch of the facial nerve. Okay, so it is only supplying the buccal mucosa, the mucosa of the buccal cavity. Okay, so now the posterior division, it gives out in the auriculotemporal nerve. We read about the auriculotemporal nerve over here, that this auriculotemporal nerve is going to supply the parotid gland. Where is it? It is that it is carrying the postganglionic fibers of the aortic ganglion. It is supplying the parotid gland. So this auriculotemporal nerve over here. Then the lingual nerve. We read about the lingual nerve in the submandibular ganglion, that it is topographically connected to the submandibular ganglion in the infratemporal fossa. So this is also a branch from the posterior division. And the third branch is known as the inferior alveolar nerve. Now listen to it carefully. This inferior alveolar nerve is going to enter the mandible and leave it as the mental nerve. Mental nerve is another exclusively sensory branch, just like the buccal nerve, which was exclusively sensory and supplies the skin of the chin. Okay, but this inferior alveolar nerve, before entering the mandible, gives out another branch which supplies the mylohyoid and the anterior belly of digastric. Okay, these two muscles are supplied by the inferior alveolar nerve before it enters the mandible. Okay, so these are all the branches of the mandibular nerve.